Back in late 2018, I was a huge fan of a game known as DanganRonpa. If you are unfamiliar with the story, the simplest way to explain it is that it's a murder mystery visual novel that is about a bunch of kids who are trapped within a school, and the only way they're allowed to leave is if they commit the perfect murder. Each person has their own special skill that they're one of the best at and use their skills to try and survive. One day, a group of inspired players decided to make a VRChat version of the game, which was the foundation of what murder mystery is today. The best part, but also the Achilles heel, is the freedom the hosts have when putting a game together. This video is going to be talking about the absolute bare bones of what makes a murder mystery game, as well as its impression on my life as a creator. As usual, these are my opinions and do not fully cover the intricacies of how everyone plays the game. Some rules that I've always seen as standard may be different for other hosts, and that's the beauty of the game. Different hosts have different strokes and all that. The purpose of this video as well is to bring a sneak peek into a community a small team is preparing for release in the future, to be showcased sometime later this year alongside 2 brand new worlds that will make murder mystery easier for the standard player and host. This will be the first part of a series that will be slowly released over time up to the release date of said community. If you've played Murder Mystery in the past, or perhaps are interested in learning more, there are communities still out there that are open to inviting fresh meat, but I do highly recommend watching this video all the way through since there is a lot to go over. First, let's go over the basics. What is Murder Mystery? As I said before, the game mode is based off of a game known as DanganRonpa. At the start of said game, each player is either lined up or contacted by the host earlier on Discord. At this point, players are given a special ability that can help change the dynamic of the game. A few examples are the Ultimate Nurse, which can revive other players who have died, the Detective, which can gain 1 extra hint during trials, and the Trapper, who sets a trap on certain items that will kill the user instead of the victim. Not every role is good, and some require more experienced players than others. The roles you get in a game is really the biggest separator in the game, as many hosts use their own set of rules, minus a few standard that transfer over easily. Once you've got your role, you are usually whisked away to the meeting room to go over the host's rules and regulations in terms of what they expect for their players. I go with the system of soft rules and hard rules, which makes things a lot easier in my opinion. To clarify, soft rules are rules that you are expected to break in-game and have no consequences outside of it. For example, many hosts holding a weapon in front of them would be considered a soft rule. You aren't getting in actual trouble, but for the sake of the flow of the game and to avoid cheap kills, you'll be given in-game punishments that fit the crime. There are also usually areas in the map like vents or secret walls that are soft rules to not go in. These areas give you a huge advantage in quickly traversing the map in a less obvious way, but of course come at the risk of being punished when caught. Hard rules, however, are much more serious. These are rules that you are under no circumstance are allowed to break. These are kept in place to keep the game fair and allow everyone to have fun. The most popular hard rule is that the players are not allowed in the mod room without being given explicit permission, and even then they are never allowed to touch the buttons that give cues for what the players are expected to do. Breaking hard rules leads to out-of-game consequences, such as temporary or permanent bans from a host game, removal from the Discord server, and usually a ban from other servers that work with the host that you've broken the rule on. The thing about Murder Mystery, especially for new players, is setup can be quite confusing and take a while. My most recent game that I hosted, one of the players thought they weren't allowed to kill unless you had a specific role, which isn't the case. See, Murder Mystery isn't like Werewolf or Town of Salem. Anyone's allowed to kill, but some have a harder or easier time depending on their ability and the ability of who they're killing. Murdering a player is very simple to do. All you need is the weapon and the person you want to kill. If you're a speaking player, you just go up to the person you want to kill, you say you're dead, and drop the weapon. Mute players will usually come up, shake and drop the weapon, and show the skull emoji to represent they are killing you. Once killed, the victim can no longer speak minus I am dead. You are also required to stay where you are killed while you wait for someone to report the body to the host. The host will then take the body into the quiet room, which is an area that nobody, spectators included, can eavesdrop in. It's where you are given or giving critical information to the host, or one of their helpers. This is for things like the dead bodies, who will then tell the host who killed them, and if there is anybody else who witnessed the murder. Once the killer is confirmed, a trial will commence with all surviving players. But that one can go forever. Roleplay games can go forever. Dar, are you dead?
This is a school announcement. It is
Are you dead?
10 p.m. As such, it is officially nighttime.
Well,
Sweet dreams, everyone. Good
I'm
night.
just... You know what?
Don't let the big
I
dog
support it.
bite.
Let me just here.
Oh.
There we go. Oh, I just started my podcast. Here we go. All right, Dar. You can be part of my podcast now. Oh, you're on a dinner plate too. You got all prepped up to be snacked on. That's unfortunate. See, so this is what we consider a dead body. And so dead bodies usually have nothing to do besides lay here and be dead. The trial portion is a hit or miss, depending on what you consider enjoyable.
Let's say they didn't
I
like
love
each
doing
other.
trials personally.
If
I was a
Cal
massive
killed
force to be
Bernard
reckoned with
in
back in the
game,
day when I
that
did
could
enjoy
actually
playing.
forward a
For others, though,
conflict in
it's the
our
most
game,
boring part of the
which is
game. The trials are definitely one of the most telling parts in a game, in my opinion. It lets me know if the person hosting is an experienced host or is starting out. I won't be going into that just yet, but once again, a future video will go into the extreme intricacies of trial life. For the basics, the trial starts with the surviving players getting a single small hint to who the killer is. These could be things like clothing, hair color, pretty much any physical appearance. Some hosts like to do more than physical appearance and instead bring in-game actions like hints, but honestly, it's just easier for everyone to keep it physical unless you're playing with heavily experienced players. Players who have in-trial abilities like the detective can also use their skill at any time during the trial to help or hinder the trial's progress. The survivors are then timed as they discuss among themselves who they think did it, and once time is up, everyone votes who they think done it. The suspect then gives their own plea before either being voted guilty or innocent, and whoever is chosen as the guilty will finally be put to death. This piece, though, honestly depends on the host. There are a few who don't kill innocent players that are voted guilty, but most of the surviving hosts that I know do. Regardless, once the trial is concluded, the results are revealed. If the player deducted the correct killer, nothing happens. If they guessed wrong, however, a punishment is given. Going into punishments, these can vary from host to host. Most popular ones are broken arms and legs, which reduce your player's speed or make it unable to pick up weapons. There are also hosts who will blind players from time to time or make them turn their master audio to 0. I personally love doing punishments such as only running backwards or making people speak in rhymes. Punishments can get more strict the more you get caught breaking the rules, and sometimes the punishment can even be your own death. However, there is a ray of hope in this pit of despair, as players can also receive rewards, known as perks, throughout the game. Just like punishments, they can be handed out either through good plays or special roles that give them an extra boost. Personally, I use a coin that mini-maps have to distribute perks to players. The coin is a perk that is hidden throughout the map, and once the player finds it and hands it to the host, they gain a reward. Some hosts allow it to be used as one free revive, a buff to their ability, or maybe immunity to certain types of weapons. Not all hosts utilize the coin, though it is popular throughout the games that I've witnessed. Another popular perk is for the player's ability to sneak out at night. In case you aren't already overloaded with all the nuances of the game, we do have an extra layer of complexity. Based off the honor rule in the original game, all players are expected to stay in their rooms at night unless you have a role that allows you free access through the night. Obviously, this is a soft rule and is expected to be broken. Sneaking out at night has its benefits, for example, using the cover to kill with a better chance of having no witnesses, or perhaps hiding weapons to kill more efficiently in the day. You could also just be looking for the coin and not doing any killing at all. There are always areas made for players to sleep at night to pass the time while waiting for the morning announcements. Finally, now that the basics have been covered, let's go into the endgame goals. The main purpose of Murder Mystery is to not only survive till the end, but also figure out who among your group was the mastermind, which is the big baddie in the game, lore-wise responsible for the game being made. The mastermind heavily differs depending on host, so I don't want to try and explain the many different perks that could just make you confused. Simply enough, mastermind is the main villain. Killers and survivors alike need to work together to figure out this final mystery to win the game. If they can't, then the mastermind kills them off and takes a W. If they can, the mastermind is killed off and takes the L. Certain hosts also have mastermind helper roles where 1 or 2 people may be working with the mastermind to throw people off their trail. Obviously, this means that their win conditions parallel the masterminds. After mastermind trial, the game has now ended and you can relax. Now that I've covered the absolute basics of Murder Mystery, I want to talk about accessibility. At the time of making this video, there are only 3 worlds that are Quest compatible to host on. More are being added slowly over time, though here is a list of all the Murder Mystery worlds that I am aware of. Out of these are the ones I've hosted on. In the future, I'll be going into detail about each world and my pros and cons of all of them from the hosting and player perspective. Every single world is focused on audio-based cues that help the player know where they're supposed to go, which means if you're hard of hearing, it's difficult for you to play the game. Murder Mystery has an assortment of announcements that use these audio cues, and some, like the day-night cycle, are accompanied by a physical light change But the others, like dead announcements, meeting announcements, etc., you'll need to use your ears. Not saying it's impossible to play if you're hard of hearing, but at the current moment, it's definitely harder to. I'm not saying look forward to our worlds, but look forward to our worlds. For mute players, killing can be hard, but once again, not impossible. The biggest issue currently is thanks to latency, murderers get ignored or arguments can happen due to each player seeing something different. Take a look at this clip with the audio involved.
Hey, Moon's
Moon's
audience, you're dead.
Okay, well...
First, but okay.
As you can see, one player obviously said you're dead first, while the other one was fairly close afterwards. Because of latency issues, it's highly possible that both parties heard themselves try to commit the murder first. This is one of the many awkward blips that happen within the game, even for those who don't play mute or are not hard of hearing. Connected to this, death avoiders are a problem within the community. Not so often since the game's dwindled in size, but I can for sure see it happening again in the future with the rise of popularity. Whenever a player is killed, it's just good sportsmanship to take the death and contest it within the privacy of the quiet room. Otherwise, things get messy, murders get cancelled, and people can get irritated. Which brings me to my final part of this quick overview of Murder Mystery. Can anybody play? Here's my controversial answer. No. And let me explain. Murder Mystery can go between 2 to 7 hours long depending on the host and their players. Rarely do the games go under or exceed that time frame, but it is possible. Because of this possible length, players who aren't willing to spend the dedicated time in a single spot may start to get antsy. I've had a few times myself where I've gotten tired mid-game and I just wanted it to end. The problem is these feelings can bring down the mood for the rest of the other players if you're loud enough about it, which also affects the hosts themselves, which then also affects the game itself. If you know you can't handle longer games, I don't recommend playing, or at least only play sparingly so you don't lose out on interest easily. The second kind of person who I don't think should play these are those who are heavily competitive. Having a healthy competitive relationship is fine, but once you start taking everything personal and getting too emotionally invested, it easily turns what's meant to be a fun game into an awkward experience. These are the people who ruin the fun for the rest of the players, and hosts who are not willing to step on toes have to choose between causing a scene to remove a player or watch their game derail into a mess of arguments. I lost my interest playing Murder Mystery because of one of these people. They took out side information and the game itself way too seriously and ended up making me leave the game after I died. So yeah, if you're the kind of person that gets way too into things when playing games, just don't join if you don't know how to control yourself. If you feel heated, you need to learn to step away. It's that simple. The game can be stressful at times and you're trying to get away with murder and failure leads to your death, but once you start moving from in-game jitters to post-game aggravation, it is your responsibility to back off, take a breather, and just try again later. The last person is the heavy memer. Having a laugh is great at all during games, but there is a time and place. As you can tell, a lot goes into a clean game of Murder Mystery, and when you've got a class clown blaring music or talking over the host and other players all the time for some stupid joke, it gets old fast. If you aren't able to keep quiet when asked to and settle down for the more serious parts of the game, then once again, I don't think Murder Mystery is the best fit for you. This is especially important during trials and mourning periods when critical information is needed to be given in a timely manner. Many games go on so long because the host has to wait for the players to settle down long enough to listen, and then turn around and get upset if they didn't hear what the host had to say. Players who end up dying because people were goofing off and talking over the trial to make memes, then at the last minute everyone just guesses them because they vaguely match a description, will understandably be upset. This is why personally when I host, I have some very strict rules with new players. I want everyone to have fun, and I always try to give new players as much of an edge that I can. But with that comes expectations from them and my older players. You have to nip all three types of people right in the bud. If someone complains loudly that they're bored, I'll punish them to make things more interesting for them. If someone is getting heated, they get a single verbal warning to knock it off before they're kicked and forced to cool down. If people try to talk over me, I will wait silently. Usually the other players will shut them up. If they choose to keep interrupting me or others when it's their turn, they'll be removed as well. As a host in Murder Mystery, and this is just a little sneak peek into a future video about hosting, it is your responsibility to keep the flow of the game. Sometimes that means removing a player, which can suck, but it's better to pull out the weed than let it fester. Overall, I do love Murder Mystery, and I find it a super enjoyable time to be had. There are communities out there that are accepting of new players, which I will be covering in another video coming soon. I do highly recommend playing a game or two if you're curious, and if you're trying to find a new group of friends. Murder Mystery is generally appropriate for all ages within VRChat's TOS, unless the hosts themselves decide to make the games adult only. I hope you'll all join me for an amazing adventure, and these next few months will be sprinkled with more information about the exciting game known as Murder Mystery. Finally, for those who do have their own servers or know of active ones, I ask that you do not promote them in the comments. If you are wanting new players, please join my Discord and message me so I can personally spectate how you host your games. It may seem a little crazy, but I take my content and thus the people who watch it very seriously, and I want to make sure that until our own server is ready, the people who do end up wanting to learn more and play some games are sent in a direction that isn't filled with discord and chaos. As stated many times, there are too many different styles of host and game modes that it'd be impossible to bracket all of them under a single blanket. I plan to use my current server as a way to promote the servers I do think as a good fit until our own murder mystery group is ready for public coming up in the next few months. Thank you all again for watching the video, and I hope you found the video enjoyable, if not entertaining. As per usual, make sure that you all drink your water, eat your broccoli, and have a fantastic day. See you all in the next video.